So this chapter throws us straight into disaster mode, doesn't it? The group's exploring what seems like, some kind of horrible trial or test disguised as a library. Shadows everywhere. Carvings that seem alive.
It's honestly chilling. There's this eerie shift from calm to chaos. Like, oh, you need a book. How about a death trap instead?
Exactly. And I love how the cave isn't just a setting, but almost a character itself. The flickering lights, the rising water, the gurgling statue. It builds tension with every detail, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's like every corner of this library screams danger. And let's talk about the water. Panic sets in, right? Like Joe's already shaking, Veronique snaps into action, and poor Fedor, limping on a bare injured ankle. Major props to him for even being there.
The bear encounter really adds to his resilience here, doesn't it? And it's fascinating how each character handles the stress differently. Veronique, especially.
Nikki, the acrobat.
Yes. Nikki steps up. She's climbing, leading, and improvising. There's 200 this determination to her, and it contrasts against Joe's more hesitant, cerebral approach. You see him handling clues, but he's clearly overwhelmed by fear.
Totally. It's like each trial plays to or pushes their strengths. Sam's resourceful, Fedor's got guts, and Veronique, her moment on the rings? Just wow, that trapeze-style jump was insane.
Absolutely. Her role here highlights how well she adapts under pressure, but also the teamwork. It's crucial. This cave forces them to unite.
Or drown. The stakes are so high. And then on top of that, you've got the snakes. Like 200, why not throw serpents into the mix?
The snakes. I have to say they add a primal fear element. And then there's Salvador watching the whole thing unfold. The way he and the council orchestrate everything.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Salvador's sinister smirk. You just know he's got bigger plans. Do you think this is all one big experiment?
It strongly feels that way. It's like the Hunger Games, where contestants are manipulated for some grander scheme. And the council's detachment.
Creepy. They're playing God, basically. But that twist, seeing their trainer, Jenny, she was against the trial the whole time. That was interesting.
It adds a layer of humanity. Jenny sees them as people, not pawns.
Big question, though. Was the cave even fair? Like, do they want these kids to die? Because piling all those dangers together? 200, that's brutal.
Fair point. It raises questions about what's at stake for them beyond survival. We'll need to keep an eye on how that develops.
Definitely. But before we move on, let's just appreciate how wild Veronique's success on the statue was. I mean, Nikki the Magnificent, am I right? Speaking of wild challenges in this so-called library, what about that tile puzzle? Like, what kind of sadistic architect puts a sliding puzzle in the middle of a death trap cave?
It is rather diabolical, isn't it? But at the same time, it mirrors one of the book's recurring themes: inventive problem-solving under pressure.
Sure, but why do these puzzles always show up in fantasy worlds? Do people in actual emergencies have time to slide tiles around? I mean, if I'm drowning, I'm not.
Picking out numerals in a mural?
Exactly. Though, credit where it's due, Joe nailed it. Even under all that pressure, trembling and panicked, it's impressive he held it together. Poor kid was exhausted.
Well, his vulnerability brings balance to the group. Where someone like Veronique rises to physical challenges, Joe contributes by decoding and figuring things out. It's a good dynamic, don't you think?
Totally. And that moment where Nikki saves him? Huge. I really think it solidified their bond. You could see how mutual reliance is shaping them, like how this trial's forcing them to grow together as a team.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Nikki, well, Veronique, she's showing such layered leadership. She protects, she improvises. It's quite the arc for her.
And she gets more creative as they go. The pyramid idea, the ropes, Nikki, the acrobat, for sure. Honestly, if it weren't for her, I have zero clue if Jo would have made it.
That's an interesting takeaway. Her adaptability is growing with each challenge. But what's equally captivating is the mechanical aspect of these traps. Remember how they handled that staircase earlier? Or the mural with the reservoir clue? It's such a recurring motif in this cave.
Right. It's like every corner introduces new mechanics and ups the stakes. Oh, and speaking of mechanics, let me tell you about this escape room I did once. Cracked. 100, okay, actually we broke. The conveniently indestructible mirror because we were so confused by the puzzle. I mean, DIY solutions, right?
Very unorthodox, to say the least. But it's a similar thrill in a way. Except here, the price of failure is far more severe, and there's absolutely no safety cushion, like in an escape room.
Just snakes. Let's not forget those nasty, slithering terrors. Honestly, Archie, it made my skin crawl just reading that part. And Fedor wading through with his messed up ankle. Unreal.
He's emerging as quite the hero, isn't he? Quietly determined but fierce when it matters. And that balance between muscle and brains across the group really comes together in the story's pressures. I just love how the trials force them to all play to their strengths and their limits.
All right, but seriously, let's talk about that final climb Veronique just pulled off. Sliding, swinging on those rings, that insane near miss where she almost fell. It was like something out of an action movie.
It was pure high-stakes action, wasn't it? And her split-second recovery, grabbing the coin mid-air while hanging upside down, it encapsulates so much of what makes her such a compelling character.
Right? And I love how she's embraced this almost superhero persona throughout. Nikki the acrobat, Nikki the magnificent. It's like she's low-key narrating her own origin story.
She manages to balance flair with true grit, though, doesn't she? That coin almost meeting a watery demise had me on edge. And speaking of water, the group's teamwork really shone here.
Oh, definitely. You've got Jo clinging to the rope for dear life, Sam diving in without a second thought, and Fedor just relentless in dragging both himself and Jo back to safety. It's like peak teamwork goals.
It also shows how well they complement each other. Their strengths are tested in ways that highlight their individuality, but they can't progress unless they support one another. I mean, take Jo, his brain power shines with those puzzles, but he really needed that rescue moment from Fedor.
Totally. It's what's so satisfying about these scenes. It's not just about who can brute force through. It's brains, bravery, and, yeah, maybe some trapeze-level gymnastics.
And that sense of balance extends to the story's structure too. For every big physical challenge, there's a mental one shortly after. Like the mural clues or the suspenseful lever setups. It's such meticulous storytelling.
Ugh, don't even get me started on those levers. Can we just acknowledge how cruel it is to make them hold all four at once while the platform literally retracts under them? It's like, oh, hope you've got perfect timing, or enjoy falling.
It's brutal, but effective. And then you have the external layer, the council watching this entire thing play out. Salvador's smug expression suggests this might all be a grand experiment.
Which, honestly, so creepy. The whole, we're judging you like pawns on a chessboard vibe. It feels like they're toying with lives for their amusement, or maybe some big secret agenda.
That dynamic really harks back to literary archetypes of enigmatic organisations. You know, shades of the Order of the Phoenix, or if we're going darker, maybe the Capitol from the Hunger Games. It's a fascinating choice to position them as detached manipulators.
Wait, did you just mention the Order of the Phoenix? I knew it. You'll seize any excuse to bring them up. But seriously, it's so true. This group has serious shadowy counsel pulling the strings energy.
And it sets up so much potential intrigue for later. Why are they testing these kids to such extremes? What's the endgame here? And more importantly, what does it say about the control they have over this world?
Big brothers watching. It's like a commentary on surveillance, control, and who holds the power. Oh, and Jenny? Didn't expect her to be such a wild card, going against Salvador like that.
Yes, her compassion added a surprising layer. It's clear she sees these kids for what they are. Human, in need of support. I suspect her role might expand as this series progresses.
Let's hope so. Someone's got to balance out Salvador's cold, calculated scheming. But for now, the kids did it, against all the odds. They made it out alive. Nikki still reigning victorious. Barely.
Quite the ending, isn't it? And it leaves so much open for the next chapter in their journey. What's out there waiting for them, and how will this experience shape their growth moving forward?
I'm pumped to find out. But for now, let's just sit back and appreciate how wild that escape was. Honestly, bravo to the group and bravo to Nikki. What a journey they've taken us on.
Indeed. And on that note, I suppose it's time to wrap things up. We'll see you all next time as we dive further into the world of the Stone Thieves. It's only going to get more intense from here.
Can't wait. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Talk soon.